and we should have better League of Legends going into Game 2.
Okay, does better mean faster?
So I can't guarantee that. But if there are fewer mistakes, it will be faster. Fewer mistakes always mean faster games. So we're jumping into picks and bans. Same bans from last game so far. Nothing seems to be changing up. I feel like the drafts from both sides weren't the end of the world, but here we're seeing a bit of a... Oh no, we did see the Morgana ban last time, and they banned the Kalista last time from Splyce. So Misfits will look to first pick the Urgot you would expect. Splyce then go for Varus, shockingly.
Yeah, there's the Urgot lock.
Maybe they go for Ornn again.
As you said, there was nothing wrong with the picks.
No.
Just
I really do think that the play was... Yeah, I think Splyce, So they definitely didn't need to force a lot. But after they got an early lead, we saw quite a few mistakes from them throwing away that early lead when they could have actually used that to reach the power spike sooner and maybe force a bit more of an advantage. But because they threw it away, they gave Misfits a huge early game advantage, and then Misfits did a great job of building it, but then they couldn't use it. So we end up in a very drawn-out game where Splyce ended up winning a couple late game team fights, a good Baron, and end of the game. Well, the minions won it for them. But so far, draft seems to be the same. Varus and, you would imagine, Ornn or Sejuani being locked in for Splyce. I'm like a prediction god.
It's amazing that
Is it Kai'Sa and Alistar again? Probably not. I don't know how much they respected the Tahm Kench from last game. It was definitely obnoxious. And what? I'm like
Kai'Sa.
5 for 5 now, I think.
No, you said probably not. I can't give you those two.
All right, fair enough.
You said it was
But it's
them.
definitely Tahm Kench now. It has to be.
Definitely Tahm Kench. I mean, Tahm Kench makes the most sense as well. You keep your AD carry safe in the lane. We saw how many times Mickey would engage, and then the Tahm Kench would eat Kobe and keep him safe.
All right, so last time the bans...
I don't think I should let you see now. I think you should just try and have to work it out from memory.
I believe that junglers were banned, so Kindred was taken off the board, and the other one was Olaf. Yes, yes, yes. 2 big picks for Misfits, and then Misfits. I can't remember what they banned away. Do you mind reminding me?
Bit of a change up here, though, for Splyce. They're going to get rid of the Aatrox. Last time, Misfits got rid of Ryze and LeBlanc.
Ah, yes, the mid laners away from Niski. 2 big comfort picks for him as well. I definitely think you have to take those off the board. I like those bans a lot. Will we really see the... Oh, no, of course, because the Aatrox is going to be taken off the board, as you just highlighted. This will leave either the Kindred or the Olaf available, so Maxwell can go back to one of those. I love seeing him on the Kindred. I think he's a really good Kindred player, and that has actually been the champion that's left open. So it makes me wonder if Splyce have a potential answer ready. They do have the counter pick. But often they have given that counter pick over to Niski.
Usually saved it for their mid laner, who did play very well on the Cassio last game as well. So wouldn't be surprised if they keep that
that's
mid
banned
lane
away
counter
too.
pick. Cassio banned away. LeBlanc now available. Splyce looking for that jungle pick probably on this rotation.
Sejuani is kind of what you would expect. A lot of hovers right now from Splyce.
Just all of Xerxes' classic.
All of his classics. Some of the stuff that he's brought out. And he is going to go for the Zac. All right, we are going to see change up. Love Zac as an engage tool. Was one of the OG Xerxes champions when he joined back in 2017. It was definitely something that was not meta, yet he kept forcing it into the meta.
Yeah, I mean, he did that with a lot of champions.
He didn't have the most success on it, but it was still something that he played a lot of. And then eventually it came into the meta, and wow, he suddenly became very scary on the champion. So no surprise. And ooh, the answer with the Poppy. I like this a lot from Maxwell. Really good against dash champions. You would assume it's in the jungle, but it's not. I'm obviously wrong. It's Poppy top lane, Talia jungle, and then it's Urgot in the mid once again. So with the Cassio gone, perhaps they're saying now, what else have you got? Urgot's still a very safe blind. Yep. You can pick him into pretty much anything.
It's not going to be the Zillion, that is just a classic Sink hover. There is still a possibility of flex. We have seen Talia mid lane a few times, even after she got changed. So
I would be very surprised to see Senkix on top.
I would as well.
Ooh,
but
here we go.
Get locked in for Niski. Give him an assassin, give one of your primary carries a way to snowball the game.
So Akali's weakest point is the laning phase in the early game. You're going to really struggle against an Urgot. That is very common. Once you hit level 6, you don't really have kill threat on an Urgot because of how annoyingly tanky he is. And I feel like the Akali into a Kai'Sa can be really challenging because she has about as much mobility as you do. Maybe not quite as much,
you're just
but...
giving me like 5 reasons why they shouldn't have picked Akali.
Because I'm not a fan of the Akali draft. Also, you've got to remember that Poppy, her shields, also works against a lot of the Akali dashes. I think the ultimate is a blink, which is the only exception.
Pretty sure it's a dash.
Oh, there you go. It's another dash. So Poppy can block all of them. The only champion that really needs to be scared is the Talia, because she is pretty slow in team fights. If Akali gets onto the backline, you can execute her very quickly. But I'm not sold on the Akali pick. I think it can work quite nicely off in a side lane when you kind of look at these side lane options. Misfits don't have the strongest side laners. They're much more geared towards team fighting. But yeah, we'll see. Definitely much more of a 1-3-1 style. Definitely team fight aspects associated with Splyce comp as well. Varus, Zac, Ornn, a lot of good engage, decent peel. Akali's still a very solid team fighter. But for Misfits, definitely much more of the 5v5. You can play 1-3-1 as well. Talia off on the side lane, Urgot on the other, with the semi-globals too. But definitely a lot of... I expect more fighting.
Yeah, well, before we get on to the for that fighting, let's hear from Misfits coach, Moose.
Thank you very much. Joined here by Hussein. Phase 1 of the draft, identical to game 1. Phase 2, huge changes with that surprise last pick, Akali. How do you like that last pick?
I don't really care about Akali too much because we've actually had a lot of practice against it this week, so I'm ready to play against it. And I was confident in our draft last game, and I'm confident in this game as well.
What specifically does your draft this time around of the Poppy and Talia have to do right to win the game and even the series?
I think we just have to play smarter with waves and play smarter against them in terms of when they come mid and what to do. Otherwise, same old.
All right, we'll find out if the boys can do it. Back to you guys at the caster desk.
Thank you very much, Quickshot and Hussein Moosvi. Just have to play smarter
with waves.
Just have to be better at the game.
See, like, I feel like that the wave management was pretty good. It was just what they then did with the wave management.
Maybe that's what he's talking about.
Perhaps that's what he's
It's the next step, the next stage of the wave process.
Well, what are we seeing at this level 1? Just a bit of deep vision, wants to get information on where Xerxes starting. Really important to remember about Zac jungle is he uses his own health to clear. Now, his clear speed isn't terrible. However, it's you get very low, and it's not the fastest. And someone like Talia can clear very quickly, and she's not known for invading, but when you have Urgot pushing in mid against an Akali, and how difficult it is for Akali to gain priority over the lane, we could see a Misfits mid jungle invade, depending on how much they want to try and shut Xerxes down.
Keeping that Zac under wraps would work out incredibly well for Misfits. Question is whether they can do it.
Yes, that is the big question. Also have my eyes on a couple of the variations that we're seeing. Remember last game we talked a little bit about how you're not seeing electrocute on junglers anymore. You're also not seeing it on Akali. She's running the fleet footwork with the domination tree in there as well, and she'll have taste of blood combined with the fleet footwork for extra mobility, but also insane lifesteal. She has a really weak laning phase, and some pros, but also I imagine talented Akali players have figured out that, hey, with the nerfs to damage, why don't we just go for sustain instead? That's where you get a lot of value from runes. So this makes a laning phase a lot easier, especially against a big lane bully like Urgot. And so you'll just notice how much Nisqy will be able to heal back with the combination of the two, along with the Q once you reach that certain energy level.
Maxwell has decided to stick with the electrocute on this Talia though, just looking for a little bit of extra burst whenever he gets those ganks off. Expect him to be a little bit more active in the early game than he was in game 1. Interestingly, claims control of both of the scuttles, and then instead of going to his blue, he stole a bit of XP. Instead of going to his blue, he's now going to go to Xerxes' blue. Has pushing mid, has pushing bot.
Yep.
And Xerxes will realize that this is not the easiest contest.
So here's the counter jungler we were talking about. Xerxes, he's pretty healthy because he started on the red buff, so he gets that regen, but you can't fight a Zac. He is a mid to late game champion. He is not a skirmisher, and he can't really contest anything. So you just concede it. Maxthor, knowing that he has this pressure, looking to invade, and he's not slowing down. He knows he doesn't need to. He knows that in any kind of fight that he will be stronger, but Xerxes does a good job of securing the wolves. So Splyce walk away with at least something.
Not with their Gromp. That's going to get taken away by Maxthor as well.
It's got to be careful, though. You can see Kassane quickly rotating up.
Probably on his way around as well, but for the moment it looks like Maxwell will just be forced out of the jungle. Game 1, Mickey on his Alistar did not have the best of times, tied for the most deaths of any player across any role this split in the EU LCS.
Ugh, rough.
Yeah.
And this guy has had a lot of praise throughout the split as well. Remember that during the 9-0, he was a big part of that. Things like his Alistar, Rakan, Braum. all very, very big comfort picks that he found a lot of success with. And you think back to some of the insane Rakan plays that he made during the regular season, everyone considered him the best support, or one of the best supports in the league, especially mechanically. But then, coming into playoffs, he made a lot of mistakes, especially against Fnatic. You look at the third place match, he made a lot of mistakes there. And now, in game 1 of this Gauntlet matchup, he was one of the big reasons why Misfits ended up falling behind due to a couple of haphazard fights that he tried to start. So he's going to be pivotal as he goes in again.
Doing it again, straight onto Hansama. Xerxes jumps in, turns the fight around. Hansama down, Mickey not in a good position at all either. Splyce get the double in the bottom lane.
This is a perfect start for Splyce. It is the bot lane that ends up finding the early kills once again, and Mickey, he's just trying to abuse the fact that Kasing's W has a very long cooldown. He wants to attack Kobe in that window, but after going for that all-in, Xerxes was lying in wait for the punish, and Splyce end up finding first blood, and Kobe's on a start of a snowball.
Yeah, you don't only lose the 2 kills, you lose the wave to the tower as well. You lose any pressure in the lane from now on out, because you've got to build water cutlass compared to double dagger for Hansama. Splyce, we thought it was Misfits that would play around their bottom lane. We thought it was Misfits that would try and get Hansama ahead. Well, Splyce have been doing incredibly well at playing around the bottom side of the map.
The thing is, on the Kai'Sa, you don't need her to snowball. You don't need to try and force these plays. And while I understand it, the fact that they don't respect the potential for the gank from Xerxes effectively enables them to die. And the thing is, so Misfits shouldn't expect it in the sense that Xerxes has no jungle camps bot, so like, why would the jungler be bot side, right? But they don't have the vision. Zac can take these creative ganks, and they end up getting punished for it. So, great start for Splyce. Last game, they threw it a little bit, tried to go for a fight that they shouldn't have. Let's see if they've shored up those mistakes and can better utilize this early game lead they've now built.
What Maxwell has to do is he knows that his enemy junglers spend a little bit more time around the bottom side. He knows he can skirmish, come in, contest these quotes, contest the Razor Beaks as well. You can see Xerxes having to flash away that Alfari. Level 6 already on the Poppy. Works out as a great pick when they get into these team fights, but until then it's just about pushing into the Ornn and the Ornn pushing back at you.
Yep, and Alfari, he does have that pressure as you identified. He's working with the jungler. Mid has priority as well. And Maxwell just continuing to invade. Xerxes now has no flash. Here comes Niski. Does have level 6.
Flashes in with the perfect execution. Maxwell, what was that damage? He's done. Niski gets the kill. Now he's on the wrong side of the map, but Xerxes is on the chase. Ornn on his way down as well, as is Alfari. Niski has the blast cone, will knock himself to safety. Pop is still coming around here, but Niski should just be able to back away towards Xerxes and Odo.
Now remember, the one champion we said needs to be careful of Akali was Talia. And that's because of how squishy she is. She'd already used, actually I'm not sure if she used the E or not. We'll be able to check that out in the replay, but that's just Akali damage. She used the ulti first to land the initial stun, and she didn't actually end up losing any farm. So this is fine from Niski. Ends up coming in, Flash gets the small stun, then uses the passive auto into ult, into second auto with Ignite. Doesn't even need the E to close the gap. Very quick and clean kill from the assassin.
And even though he's a little bit behind, Niski is getting ahead in terms of kills. Behind his CS, about 12 or so, has now the Hex Tech revolver, building up towards the Gunblade, and when we see Akali's get that, they start to be able to roam around the map and actually influence lanes other than their own, because killing Senkooks, as we've said, is basically impossible. The shield, the Purge gives him the tankiness that is inherent on Ornn as well, just makes it very hard to trade in that lane.
It's also just Urgot, right?
Yeah.
Like, he's not the scariest champion in the world. Yeah, he's solid, he does damage, he's tanky, but he's also not the champion that's going to carry you the whole game.
That's Hansama here on the Kai'Sa, probably. Maybe even Maxwell on the Talia.
Yeah, and so far, both of them are at a deficit. So Splyce feeling really happy with how things are going. The Akali, the fact that you found an early kill is great, because it kind of makes up for this early gold deficit that you find yourself in, working towards the Gunblade. So everything looking good for Splyce, feeling much happier. They don't need to force anything right now as we approach the 10-minute mark.
Yeah, something Splyce have done actually really well across the course of this series thus far is keep Odo Omne in check as well, because in quarterfinals we saw him really struggle against Schalke. Lots of isolated deaths, was behind in CS, was dying a lot as well. In game 1, played incredibly well on the Ornn. Now they put him back on the Ornn duty. He's looking strong, isn't overextending. If he can keep this up, Splyce seems to have shored up that weakness.
Yeah, Splyce said to Odo, you are now on tank duty. You must survive, provide, engage. And he's been doing that. Been holding his own against Alfari. He did find that one isolated death last game.
Yeah, that doesn't count. It
Wouldn't be
teleported
Yoda.
behind him.
But the team ended up getting an Elder Dragon off the back of it, so I still think it was worth, you know, dying for the cause. Definitely having a much better series this time around, and wants to make it to Worlds. See whether or not he can do it, as we see a dive set up in the bot lane for Splyce, but with Maxor around, they can't commit.
Can't go for anything further. Of course, the team that wins this series will face up against G2 tomorrow, and then against Schalke on Sunday if they then win again. We've never seen a team go from the lowest round of the gauntlet into Worlds in Europe.
Yes.
C9 have done it once in NA, but
Genji on track to potentially doing it.
That's true, that's true. The world champions having to run their way through the gauntlet. And one of these teams may face them in just a few weeks' time. We'll be playing through the play-ins, of course, and now with the Infernal Dragon up 10 minutes in. Splyce going to try and secure that for themselves. 1,000 gold ahead. Looks like Misfits can't really contest.
So Splyce utilizing their pressure well. They do have a CS advantage in bot. The Blade of the Ruin King is very close to completion for Corbett. Misfits on the back foot in the early game, and they're a team that once they fall behind struggle to get back in, and now we see again.
As he jumps in, great knock-up. Chain of Corruption used on Mickey as well. They're going to try and chase him down, but the Unbreakable will keep him pretty tanky.
Yeah.
And actually, looking at it, there were so many tools for Misfits to stop any Xerxes engage in the late game, because you have the Steadfast Presence from the Poppy, you've got the knockback from Talia, you've got the Alistair knockback, you've got the E from Urgot as well.
I would be very impressed if you could land a Talia W onto...
Hey, these guys are professional studies, okay? This isn't your solo Q scum that you see
Still,
sometimes.
that
okay?
for a pro player to react that quickly, that would be...
It's predictive.
Very impressive. Yeah, you'd almost have to predict it.
I'm pretty sure I've done it once or twice.
But the more consistent one is the E. So you throw that out, and then Zach jumps in. He loses a chunk of his HP because he just dashed through all of your rocks. But yeah, you're right. When Xerxes looks for an engage, there's a big risk of his engage falling flat. And a lot of props to Mickey there, noticing it at the last second, throws down the Q to interrupt so he doesn't get knocked up. The Varus ultimate did come out, but then he had his ulti to just break free. Now Misfits, after recognizing the bot was kind of falling apart and they lost the Drake, they swapped towards topside where...
Takes a big chunk, has to flash away. Xerxes was channeling in the Elastic Slingshot, but will not use it.
So
not dying in the side lane.
Yes, the good from Odo Omne, still able to survive, did cost him his flash, but Rift Herald was picked up for Misfits, so this is kind of the best case scenario for them, given the current state of the game. And I think it was smart, but Splyce very quick to react, not going to lose their tower.
We've seen Misfits do that a few times, just getting away from a lane that they feel like they're losing, but Splyce don't really lose anything at all by coming back up towards this top side. They're still 1,000 gold ahead. They still have that Infernal in their back pocket. You've got an AD carry almost at the Blade of the Ruin King already. 20 CS up over Han Summer. And they talked about it a little bit in the analyst desk. Kobe is this player that he's quietly, consistently good.
Yes.
And you can always rely on him to make these plays. Got 7 kills in the last game. Here is 1,000 gold ahead of Han Summer, who is always the guy that we look at for Misfits and say he's one of their primary carries.
So this is something Defish and I talk a lot about, which is carries versus consistency. I think Caps is a great example of someone who will carry you a game.
Yeah.
He is a little inconsistent, but he will carry you a game.
Yeah.
You give him a slight lead, and he will run away with it.
Doing it.
Right? Kobe is the kind of player that you don't need to invest a huge amount of gold into him. Even if he falls behind or even if he gets ahead, he's just really good at doing what he's supposed to do. And that's why he's very solid and consistent. And those kind of players are really valuable, often in teams that have a lot of playmakers. Because if you have a team full of playmakers, then you have a risk. And that's kind of why Reckless fits very well into Caps, because he is that very solid, consistent AD carry down the bot lane. And you kind of compare that to Niski, who has evolved into a big carry for Splyce. He has been the one that's been making those plays over the last couple of splits. And it's nice to see his evolution and kind of his role on the team and how well he has been working with Xerxes to act as that playmaker, that carry. We only have to think back to that 2 versus 5 that he did at the 3rd place match with the Cassio, the number of solo kills that he got as well.
EC Wonder laying down some smack talk. Today is just a show match. Both these teams stand 0 chance against us. Well, judging from game 1, maybe. Neither team looked incredibly impressive in game 1, but game 2 has been a lot stronger from Splyce. Misfits do once again use that Rift Herald to get mid tower. pretty much a carbon
Those are also
copy of
really
one.
big words for a team. The last time we saw them, they got 3-0'd
By Misfits.
So a lot of confidence there from Wonder. I do like it. I like it a lot. But now Misfits heading down towards the bot. Can they get a kill on the board?
Weavers will use Odoame, not in a great position now. Hasn't got the flash either. Is going to get caught up here. And should be a pretty easy kill for Misfits. Maxwell gets it. First kill of the game for
That's
the Blue
another
Star team.
isolated death for Odo Omne.
Yeah, I don't feel that one was really his fault. Maybe
I
it
mean,
was
it
slightly over.
definitely
Okay, it
was.
his fault.
He had no vision control in River. He actually had a ward there. He saw them roaming down, and he didn't have flash. He should have just backed away. Instead, he died.
Oh, Maxwell wins the smite war there as well between the two junglers. Misfits actually about 500 gold ahead coming up towards the 15-minute mark, so they will be slightly in the lead, but our eyes, I think my eyes are always going to go to Kobe and where he is in terms of game state at the moment. He's finished the play to the Ruin King, 30 CS up, 40 CS up, in a very strong spot.
So, we just talked about this, man.
Yeah, I know.
Consistency versus carries. I know you have your eyes on Kobe, and that's great. He's a great player. He's definitely going to be a big damage dealer. And I definitely think that if Splyce are going to win, he's going to be a big part of it. But if you want to keep your eyes on anyone, Niski should be the player that you keep your eyes on.
I'm going to keep my eyes on Niski.
He's on an Akali. He's just completed his Gunblade.
It's a good skin as well.
Level 11 is a big power spike for the Akali because her ultimate cooldown is significantly reduced, which means that in a side lane, she can look to be a little bit more aggressive. And even though she's fallen behind during the early laning phase, the gold is actually very even between her and Senkux. So Kobe, I think, is in a great position. He's going to keep farming up. He's going to be definitely very relevant. He's going to be important. But the game changer is going to be how impactful this Akali pick is for Splyce. She's hard to play in team fights. We already talked about how there's so much on Misfits that can make her life difficult. And really, she needs to be in a position where she can threaten on a side lane if she's going to be impactful in this game. So Niski needs to be one of your big players to keep your eyes on.
At the moment, my eyes are down towards this bottom lane as the second tower falls for Misfits. Odo played a little bit safer, backed away here. We'll notice that Maxwell and Mickey are around in the jungle. Niski's going to jump onto Senkux, but really not that much damage yet. Here comes the Tahm Kench. Pistol Voyage used. Kobe's going to root up Senkux under the tower. Niski gets the kill. As you say, Vedius, eyes on Kobe and on Niski as well. As he jumps in, how far he gets the knockback, hits the call to the Forge Gods. He's going to jump away with the Let's Bounce. Look at the damage coming down from Niski. Mickey once again the man overextended for Misfits, and he will fall as well. Splyce find the fight they needed in the mid lane.
Love the play here from Niski and Splyce. They utilized the Tahm Kench ultimate to quickly turn a 1v1 into a 3v1, and the CC stacking enabled Niski to get a kill. He then picked up another one after Misfits tried to force a 4 versus 5. Alfari committed to the TP, and now we have the TP flank coming in from Senkix. He has respawned. Fire Drake has been started.
So going to be a 4v5. Senkux doesn't even
That's a
have
lot of
the ultimate
damage.
here, but he's in the midst of them all. Niski's still alive. Oh, down. Look at the damage coming out. And now it's all on Xerxes and Kobe to try and carry through this fight. Kobe won't even take down one. A triple kill for Maxwell.
That's a big fight win for Misfits, and they're able to get back into the game. Definitely what they needed to make happen, and it was all off the back of a beautiful TP flanking from Senkux with a great Talia wall from Maxlaw. Splyce, they suffered in that situation. They overcommitted, thinking that they could go for the Infernal Drake, but the TPs were what they were not expecting, and they didn't respect it. They end up dying.
2,000 gold lead now for Misfits. Coming back into this game, Maxlaw has got himself a Medjai's Soul Stealer. 9 stacks on
God damn
that.
it, Maxlaw.
Just like, guys, I'm ahead. We said eyes on Niski. I'm saying eyes on Maxlaw.
So, the fight happens. You can see 2 are dead. Really bad fight from Misfits. They didn't need to force it. Splyce really happy, and I love the way in which they utilize the Tahm Kench ultimate. But then they start off the Infernal. They don't have vision in their own half of the jungle, and then look at this Talia wall from Maxlaw just as Senkux arrives. They cut off the escape route. They funnel them all into this choke point. The AoE damage from Hans, Sama, Maxlaw, and Senkux all combines to get you a couple of kills. Xerxes rejoins, but he isn't really able to do much outside of get the kill onto Senkux. So Misfits, and credit to Kobe, he tried his very best. We talked about how he will be a big damage dealer. He came close to taking it down Alfari, but in the end, it wasn't quite enough, and Misfits end up winning the fight. They now have a 2,000 gold lead over Splyce.
Pretty good spot, but Niski's going to jump straight onto Hansama. He flashes across the wall. Kassin coming in from the bottom side here as well. Has to flash from Mickey. it was 2 flashes for 1
Interesting
at the end of the day.
that Niski used his flash on that. I suppose he did get flash out from Hans Summer as well.
Means you can't
Flash to
dodge it,
flash.
right? You flash, you get the micro stun.
True. But no flash on Akali is always dangerous. You do have the Gunblade. Ooh, he's going for Morello second. That's always a bit of a risk, just because it will give you more damage, but it significantly reduces your survivability. Often you'll see many Akalis go for Zhonya second and then the Morello afterwards. But Niski's saying, you know what, I'm already ahead, I want more damage, we have enough tanky frontline, I don't need the Zhonyas for survivability, and is perhaps relying a little bit on Kasing to provide that safety net.
And how many times have we seen Misfits fall into a bad situation, then actually be able to come back and kind of turn around our expectations? It goes all the way back to last year. You know, they beat Fnatic, they beat Splyce, they almost beat SKT. As an organization, they are a team that we always underestimate and then have to change our thoughts.
So the thing is, that was last year's narrative.
That's true.
But this year, expectations were kind of low, because many people didn't think that Senkux and Mickey were actually an upgrade. Many criticized the decision to make that change, and then last split, they failed to qualify for playoffs. And many people said, told you, wasn't a good idea, the change didn't make sense. They then said, nope, we believe in the process, we believe in the growth of our players, we believe in our coaching staff, you just gotta trust the system. And then coming into this split, 9-0. And we're like, okay, we trust the system.
100%
all
trust in that system.
And then it all went downhill. They went 2-7 in the second half of the split. Just when people started to believe, just when people thought the 18-0 would come about, that was when they faltered. And then in playoffs, many people said, G2's going to smash them. They looked awful, 2-7, and then they defeat expectations. So it's almost like this team is built upon the amount of belief that they have in them.
KT, if you believe too much, they'll lose.
Yeah, they falter.
That's the way it works.
Yeah, so...
but KT did win.
They did win.
So maybe Misfits can win.
Maybe, but things still are not in a great position for them overall. They still have 3 games that they have to win against Splyce. Then they have to go through 2 more opponents in the gauntlet who get to see everything that they bring. And now we see Odo maybe getting called out.
Odo flashed away. Hans Summer did use Killer Instinct. Here comes the call of the Forge God as well, just to try and keep them
There's
busy.
an engage in mid.
Joining. It was a bit of voyage, but it was cancelled. There's an engage in mid, as you say. Splyce is trying to find the fight in the 3v4. Niski jumps in. Perfect execution here from Splyce. They get 2. And Senkux has to run for the win.
Interesting. Mickey tried to interrupt the join-in from Kasing as Misfits tried to force a play down bot, but by interrupting it allowed Splyce to actually force a fight in the mid lane. Niski picks up more kills and Maxlor is dead. The Baron buff is alive, and Cobbett, he has 2 items completed. They're just going to shred through this objective.
Kinsu's Blade of the Ruin King already down to 9,000 HP. Odo fighting in the mid lane against Hans Summer. Here's Senkux and Alfari joining the party. Ultimate available for Alfari if he needs it.
Now Senkux does have the spellbook. Will he swap towards the smite? No, Splyce looking for a fight.
Jump forward, Xerxes takes the chains. Odo in the midst of it all as well. Alfari still so tanky. Senkux pulls him in. Baby on death. That's 1 down. And now Splyce, as the Baron resets, they have to run away.
So that means that nothing big gained there. It ends up being a 2-for-1 fight in favor of Splyce. They will lose control over the Baron. Hans Summer, cheeky, starting that one off. Lands on the Niski. No ulti just yet.
But Mickey can go in with a flash engage. Niski gets away with Hexa Gunblade, but Kasing will fall in his stead. Another 1 down. Misfits might even look to force straight towards the Baron.
Well, still risky with Xerxes still being alive. Odo Omni about to respawn in 7 seconds, has TP. Do they take the gamble? Yes, they will.
They've got teleport up on Alfai. He joins. There's the control ward in the back of the pit. 10,000 HP left on the Baron. Mickey trying to act as the bouncer once again. TP into the mid lane here by Splyce. Mickey doing exactly what he did in game 1. He's waiting on that combo. Odo now joins. Here's the call of the Forge God. Mickey with the knockaway. Xerxes channels but doesn't get the jump in. Look at the damage in the pit though. Maxlor is so low, but he survives. Baron taken by Hans Summer as well, and Misfits get out clean.
Wow, Maxlor just barely surviving and Misfits secure themselves the Baron. Very close set of exchanges that all started off with Splyce looking to be the ones to secure the objective. They will be able to get an Ocean Drake as a bit of a consolation prize, but what a series of events. I believe the replay isn't going to be that long, so remember, this all started with Misfits trying to get a kill onto Odo Omni in the bot lane. They failed to do so. Then Kasing tries to use his ulti to join, but he isn't able to do it. Then Splyce end up winning a fight mid, they go towards the Baron, they're feeling confident. But after losing Odoamne at the beginning of the fight, it ends up being Misfits that can commit to the Baron. Mickey is able to zone Xerxes away completely, and just before Maxlor loses his life, he ends up smiting away the Baron to get health back. Misfits are able to lock down Odo to prevent him getting onto Maxlor, and now all 5 members sit with the Baron in their back pockets.
4,000 gold lead for Misfits. 3 items almost completed on Hansama as well. Has the Ginsus and the Banshees now building up towards that Nash's Tooth. The big loss for Misfits in that last set of events. Glory stacks. Down from 9 to 2 now on the Medjai's Soul Stealer.
Travesty.
It's a big shame for Maxwell. Who's
anyone that ever buys it, you know is going to die. It's just a transit of properties, you know? It's bound to happen.
Here comes Mickey channeling. Hex Flash doesn't go in.
I was like,
Could have done it though here. There's a big engage onto Hansama. Call of the Forge God is going to connect. The Chain of Corruption was used as well, but Splyce just forced them away for the moment. Senkux is pushing in the mid wave.
Yep.
Has Exhaust and Flash at the moment with that unsealed spellbook. Kising's going to try and rotate, but Senkux just gets away.
Good awareness there.
Cleared once again, and they're going to lose bot tower because of this.
So Misfits pushing their advantage much more aggressively this time around. They've secured 1 tower. Can they secure more? The lack of a Cassiopeia on the enemy team definitely makes things easier for Misfits to siege. There's the Talia wall.
Weaver's wall used, but Odo can break through it, of course, on the Ornn. Zessi looking for the engage. Steadfast Presence knocked him back. Mickey with the re-engage. Kobe on the back line, still safe to do the damage. Let's bounce. Brings back the Alistair. That's not really the target you want. Kobe takes a chunk to the back. Fear Beyond connected, but didn't have the damage to take him out. This is much better stuff for Misfits, though. With this Baron buff, 25 minutes in, they have broken the base of Splyce.
Ski doesn't want to commit. Will just back away, but that's a big inhibitor gain for Misfits. 5,000 gold now. This time, they've actually been able to break into the base. Last game they had this gold lead, but they didn't even take an inhibitor tower. This time around they still have the Baron buff up. It's got around 30 seconds left, and they want to use it as much as possible.
Pushing for the mid tier 2. It's already chunked out pretty heavily here by Senkux earlier on, so that's going to fall as well. Good stuff here from Misfits. 7,000 gold ahead, 26 minutes in. When we came through pick and ban, we wondered, would Misfits be able to, with the same draft, play a quicker game? Well, that's exactly what they've done here. They've actually, with that first Baron, been able to shut out Splyce from this matchup.
And a lot of this gold difference actually sits on the jungle and top laner for Misfits. Alfari has been able to build up a huge gold lead over Odoamne, and Maxlor, due to so much counter jungle presence and farming, is level 15, 3 levels above Xerxes again, and has been able to pick up a bunch of kills. So those two have been huge contributors in this game, kind of moving the focus away from the bot lane, who's often been the biggest talking point whenever you look at Misfits and how they win games.
Much better Baron power play there for Misfits, as you say. Just trying to get other carries on this team. We used to talk about Misfits as the single carry team. It was only Power of Evil who would step up to the plate. Then Hansama joined him, and now Misfits kind of having to move away from having Hansama as their primary carry in every game.
Yep, he has been playing this Kai'Sa much more of the scaling pick. You can see that Kobe, definitely no slouch. He's been utilizing the gold that was invested into him. Niski, kind of expected to be low damage because he has just been assassinating single targets. So he's been more of the cleanup crew and just finding single picks. Akali not really known for throwing out huge amounts of damage, but now that you're behind, you can't really threaten a side lane. You can't really offer much in these teamfights. Maxwell, he's level 16.
Almost, well, he's Flame Horizoned his opposing jungler as well. 100 CS ahead. Chain of Corruption used on Alfari underneath the tower. Here comes Xerxes with the engage. Steadfast Presence goes down. Let's bounce. Brings back the carry, and the Call of the Forge God is going to connect on the backline. Niski trying to do what he can, but he's jumped on straight away. Manages to survive, but he gets pulled right back into the jaws of the beast. Senkux takes him down, and now Misfits can look to push in with this next wave.
So 1-for-1 there. Alfari drops an exchange, one of the biggest damage dealers on the side of Splyce. Corbett is still alive though, but look at how he gets chunked out. They can't defend this tower. Misfits are breaking another inhibitor tower.
Inhib already down in that bot lane, going to fall up here towards the top side as well. Misfits much more proactive, much more willing to press that go button. It's worked out so well for them. 8,000 gold ahead, 28 minutes into this game. They're going to reset, look towards that Baron in a minute and a half.
And remember, all of this came off the back of what was a bit of a crazy Baron play. Like both teams trading kills across the board, but it was Misfits that ended up securing it, and off the back of that single objective, 28.5 minutes into the game, they're now 7,000 gold ahead. This was the fight that just happened. We can see that a bit of poke mainly comes out. Maxwell tries to zone the rest of Splyce away. And keep your eyes on the positioning of Nisqy as he follows up onto Xerxes. The engage gets interrupted, but Nisqy, he's just waiting for a target to dive on top of. He sees Alfari at the beginning, Mickey goes on top of him, and then the stealth comes out. But the ulti from Senkux lands before he's able to jump away, thanks to the setup that came out from Mickey, which meant that Nisqy just wasn't able to impact the fight the way he wanted, as Misfits was just so aware of his position.
And those chains will follow you all the way. And as you can see, it doesn't matter how much damage your AD carry is doing, it matters if you're getting the kills. And that's what's working out for Misfits. Pushing in this mid lane now, it's a big wave top, big wave bot. They're just waiting for those waves to get in. We've seen Xerxes often denied by Misfits from that engage. Hasn't really had the pressure we would have liked to see from him on this sack.
Not quite yet. But it has been a tough game for him. He fell really far behind in the early game. He did find a couple of successful ganks, but outside of that, he hasn't been able to start any of these big team fights. Here we go, though. Ornalt.
Xerxes jumps in behind them all. Let's bounce use, brings back Hansama. Just needs one more auto. He's done. That is exactly what you want if you're Splyce. And now they can look for the fight. Kasing eats up Alfari down towards the bottom side. He goes down. It's a double for Kobe. They're going to keep chasing forward here. Tom Kench in behind them all. Is that where you want your AD carry to be? They say yes for the moment. Kasing once again keeping his AD carry alive. That's the shutdown for Kobe. He gets himself a triple. And it's a great fight for Splyce.
But look, the Baron is alive. Splyce, they found a huge team fight win in the mid lane. Misfits end up making a crucial mistake, and Splyce, this could have been exactly what they needed to get back into this game.
Maxwell will get himself an Ocean Drake, highest level in the game, level 17, but that did not help out his team in the last fight. Splyce keep their Nexus towers alive. They saw what minions could do in game one, and now with the Baron, only 2,000 gold behind, cresting that 30-minute mark, we're well and truly in the late game.
Whew, still a close game. Misfits, the game was all but done and dusted, but a single good engage from Xerxes could well have turned the game around. So keep your eyes on Hansama. The Banshees gets popped there. This means the Ornalt comes in and there's no protection from Alfari, which means that the knockup comes up onto Hansama. He gets pulled back in from Xerxes. The knockback misses from Alfari, which means that Kobe is still relevant in the fight. And with the Kai'Sa gone and the front line disappearing from Alfari, the chase from Splyce becomes easy.
Great stuff from Splyce. That replay was brought to you by Ace the Predator as Senkux goes down in the end. I thought for a moment when the Abyssal Voyage came in that Kobe and Kasing maybe had overstepped because you were stepping straight into Maxwell and Senkux. But no damage from Hansama in the fight. Minimal damage from Senkux and Maxwell as well. And once again, Kobe consistently putting out those damage numbers.
And it's these team fights coming out from Splyce. A lot of it off the back off of Kobe. This guy, he's consistently consistent as we see bit of an engage coming out from Splyce. Not quite the same setup as they had last time. Xerxes couldn't get onto the backline. Alfari now better peeling for his AD carry. But the difference in the carries is phenomenal. Level 16 for Kobe right now. He has finished his 4th item in the Infinity Edge. And here we go, Misfits looking for another engage.
Teleport was burned by Senkux in that last fight, cancelled it, so it's about half cooldown, but he has now joined up with his team. Inhib will respawn relatively soon in that top side as well. This bottom lane is back. Only 2,000 gold between the two teams now. Splyce have really fought their way back into this one. Even 8 towers to 2 down. If they can find a good fight and start to take down some of those structures, they will skyrocket their gold lead.
I never even noticed the farm. Look at how far ahead Kobe is of his counterpart. Hansama, outside of lane bully champions, we haven't really seen him pop off. Now that he's on the Kai'Sa, more of the scaling pick, he's struggled to have an impact so far in this series, whereas Kobe has shown to be a consistent damage output and will be a big reason as to why Splyce will win if they're able to turn this one around. Akali is in the top lane. Misfits, even with the enemy in control of the Baron, want to keep up pressure. Keep your eyes on the backline.
Xerxes jumps in, stop with the 7-house presence, but he's going to bring back 3 members of Misfits. Mickey knocks away Kobe. It's a key carry damage dealer in the fight. Mickey's going to go down. Xerxes still alive here. Odo Amne eaten up by Kasing, looking for the chase. Nisqy jumps in, micro stun on Hansama. He gets the perfect execution on 2. A double kill for the Akali, and now Misfits are running for the hills, but you're running straight into the gaping jaw of Kasing. Alfari will fall, devoured up by the Tom Ken spat out into the midst of Splyce, and what a superb moment for Splyce. What a fight. They defend their base, and they are still alive.
Another fantastic team fight for Splyce, and it all comes back off this engage once again. Hansama gets knocked up by Odo Omni, a three-man pullback from the side of Xerxes. Mickey does his best to keep Kobe busy, but he dies before the front line of Splyce does. Senkax and Maxwell get chunked out, and then look at Niski here. Has the double execute into Auto, into Zhonya's, results in an easy chase from the side of Splyce. Beautifully played, and this time round, it was that much harder for Kobe to really get onto the backline. Now, Splyce, they're just running it down mid. They're going to secure themselves their first inhib of the game, but they can't look to end it just yet.
And replay was brought to you by Acer Predator, and it gave Splyce a 3,000 gold lead. Actually starting to get back into this game. They get down that mid inhib. Teleport used here. Look at Mickey, he's going to get the flank onto Kasing. Here comes Maxwell as well with the Weaver's Wall. Teleport coming in. Kasing jumps across. Alfari on that backline. Chain of Corruption's going to keep him stopped for the moment. Kasing's going to die. And maybe Misfits have found a moment here. Maybe that pick is enough for them to push forward and get some of these inhibitors.
But Splyce just keep playing these late game fights so beautifully. They're now 18-10 in the kill score. Even though they have a numbers advantage, it still doesn't feel like that the fight or the game is decided. Misfits once again grouping in the bot lane. Ornn ulti up, Xerxes ulti up, Niski ulti up. Splyce will lose the inhibitor. So I built that up a little too much. Splyce just forced to play on the defensive. Elder Dragon spawning in about a minute's time. Kasing will be alive. His flash is unavailable for the time being. But whew, this game looked done and dusted. We thought that Misfits were just going to end it. But two huge team fights from Splyce. 9-1-7 Kobe.
And there becomes a point where you can say he's a consistent AD carry, but he's gone 7-2-4 with 40% damage percentage, and now he's 9-1-7 in game 2. I call that carrying. Well, I mean, carrying through being consistent. I mean, but he's still carrying.
Yeah, sure. Again, the dude is doing his job, and he's doing it excellently. You can't deny his impact. But when you look at the fight, it was Odo and Xerxes who made the big plays, right? And it was just Kobe who came in and did his job. And that's what I give him so much praise for. I think he's excellent as an AD carry. But I'm not expecting him to make that flash play or that clutch. Yeah, he's not going to be the guy that gets that crucial outplay that suddenly wins you the game. That doesn't take anything away from him. And he's still a very, very good AD carry that could be a big contributor in getting Splyce back into this game.
Hansama used Killer Instinct there to chase onto Xerxes. Kasing knocked back with the seismic shove, and now he's not in a good situation at all. Odo Omni is going to call of the Forge God here. The hammer, Keeper's Verdict from Alfari, knocks away Odo. Xerxes jumps in towards the backline, lets bounce, brings back one. It's only Mickey, it's the tank. Kasing has to gobble up at Kobe to keep him alive for the moment. Xerxes flashes away, Niski still flanky. You can see that donut ring of stealth where he can just dodge around.
But the fight is happening in mid, which means that Misfits can continue to clear these super minions away while a big minion wave is building up in bot that Splyce have to deal with. A lot of ultimates were used in that last exchange. Misfits do have priority over the Baron, though. No one ends up dying. Still a very close game as we approach the 38-minute mark.
Elder Dragon taken for Misfits this time. 37 minutes in, basically 200 to 300 gold between these two teams. Nothing at all. 6 items complete on your AD carry. 4 items already on Niski as well. And you look at it and you're just wondering how the next team fight is going to go, because it always feels like a single misstep from either of these teams just gives the other team the game.
I mean, the thing is, because Splyce were in such a huge disadvantage prior to those two fights, they couldn't really gain a huge amount off the map. They did get that mid in here, but the game state is still relatively even, and that was how big the lead that Misfits had built, that they could afford to make those mistakes. But as you rightly said, it's now reached a point where you make another big mistake like that, and the game could be over. The base is in tatters from the side of Splyce. Splyce, if they can just keep enough members alive, could just run straight down mid and end the game. A lot of it will be decided on this Baron as Odo.
Hansama jumps in onto Odo. Odo caught out once again by himself. Needs to get away. Will be alive for the moment as Kasing gobbles him up with the Devourer. There's the Weaver's Wall used as well, but Kobe is on the other side of this, can get a lot of damage down. He's knocked away with the hammer down. Keeper's Verdict's going to keep him out of the fight for the moment. Splyce still surviving. Mickey jumps in once again. There's the damage. Niski down. Odo down as well. It's all on Kobe. Has to flash away from the Praise Seeker. Kasing gets one. Mickey down as well. It's going to be a 3-for-1 trade in favor of Misfits, and now in a 4v2, they can push for the base.
Oh, that ultimate from Alfari was huge. Knocking Kobe out of the fight meant that so much of the damage from Splyce just disappeared. They now still have the Elder Drake. They have super minions pushing in bot. Misfits looking to try and end the game.
All on Kobe and Xerxes to try and hold on to this game for Splyce. Misfits pushing in. Just 2 Nexus towers between them and equalizing this series. There's one already down. Xerxes in the midst of it all is not in good shape. He's done. Kobe knocked into the wall as well. Shut down by Maxlaw. And Misfits are going to strike back and take us to 1-on-1.
Much more action-packed in the late game. A lot more fighting. Definitely closer. Misfits, they wanted to end that game faster, but Splyce showing the capability of their late game fights. Xerxes finding those good flank engages. The fact that we saw Niski getting some great plays on the Akali, and of course Kobe. 9-2 and 8 at the end of that game. He had a phenomenal performance. He was a huge part of why Splyce were even able to come back in these fights. But unfortunately, in that final fight, he was knocked out. It was Alfari that made the play to remove his damage from the last engagement, enabling Misfits to finally win the fight and come out with a 1-1.
Much more what we wanted to see from Misfits. They were actually able to speed up their game. They stopped Splyce from being able to really delay the game, really stall that game into the late game. And if you're Misfits now, you look at that, you say, okay, we played a similar draft 2 games in a row. Pretty happy with how it went in the second game.
Well, you're
satisfied?
Your early game was better for Misfits, but at the same time, the fact that they did lose that big late game team fight to Splyce, definitely something they need to shore up, because Splyce just showing that their ability to fight seems that much stronger than Misfits.
Seems really good at the moment. We're going to break down that game too, over at the analyst desk.
I love the way you just gave that over to us, Medic. We are here at the analyst desk, and we have it 1-1. We have to say, when we were watching that, it felt like Misfits was really in the late game, clawing themselves back out of the jaws of defeat. I think all credit to them for turning that game around in the end, because if you lose this one, of course you only need to, but I think you just go under in 10 minutes in game 3.
Yes, first statement after this game, most important win of the entire year for Misfits. You are 100% losing 3-0 if you lose this game.
Yeah.
After, once again, you actually get some sort of lead. It looked like, okay, they're going to get it, and then bam, you know, everything just...
Even an empty chair there.
There's no
empty
Alfari
chair.
in this chair. And
There's no Alfari now.
That is a really good sign, because...
It is, actually, yeah.
It really felt like Misfit kind of... You know, it's really hard to tell. I would really like to have more insight into this as well, but it really felt like they were kind of falling apart. We're not really on the same page for what was going on. With this win, I think everybody got a lot of confidence, and the mental swing is really, really important here. And I think this is exactly what Misfit needed, and now we have really serious in our hands.
Absolutely.
And I also want to say, listen, we were all after game 1 kind of sad.
Yeah.
Because that was some bad League of
After
Legends.
seeing LPL today and
We have
LCK.
all, we all read everything the community is saying, and we all agree with you guys. It was not great. I don't want that to continue, or that idea that every game will then be as bad as game 1, because I think this game 2, we had less mechanical issues, for sure. We had a lot more action as well.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to see a change, not calling it perfect yet, but I think there was a big difference between game 1 and 2, and I want to see more of the game 2 trends going forward.
I agree. When we went into game 2, I asked you guys what should Misfits do. Sheepy, you said I want them to be a bit more proactive. Unfortunately for them, it was Splyce, once again, that in the early game reigned supreme at the very beginning.
Yeah, and he didn't say proactive how. It could be feed more, and that's what they tried to do in the bottom lane, where...
They're just misunderstanding what I'm saying.
My original win condition to Misfits of, you know, winning the bot side with engaged support has definitely not worked out for them.
No.
This was a good gank, obviously, as well, but very easy kills. And we got scared. We're like, okay, Splyce is going to take this game now.
Yeah.
Indeed. Really good again from Splyce earlier. If we take a look at picks and bans, and the reason why I want to show this replay again is because it is exactly what happened in game 1, and Misfits actually has a lot of the same tools that they did in game 1. So what was different then about both their draft or the way they approached the mid game for Misfits?
It's really hard to say.
So you're looking at the fish show.
Less skill shots and combos were missed. That definitely
What
helped.
do we pay you guys for?
That statement right there, that was a big one.
Put in the check.
I mean, so I think with Misfits generally, again, and I said this after the first game, I was like, you can actually pick the exact same draft,
Yeah.
And you just got, like, your execution was so bad in the first game, you must trust in your players that they can do it better for game 2. And we did see some changes. I'm still not on the Mickey hype train yet for this series. But I think they actually, in the mid game at least, managed to do better in certain fights, and we thought it was then over. Obviously, Splyce then ended up having some really good team fights, but that's also what they draft for with this comp.
Also, I want to just highlight that Maxlor has been playing really, really good in both of these games. Game before, he was 130 CS up. Really good jungle pathing overall, got the Scuttle Crabs really, really easily. In game 2 now, he was 3 levels up, I think. So he's been really, really putting the team on his back and has been very, very consistent. I think if Misfit is needing something right now, is like a strong personality to stand behind, so that they're all on the same page and know that they can win this game.
I think you are right in that if they have Maxlor performing and if he can kind of make the rest of the team feel that as well, which I think is maybe what happened in this game, then they're in a better place. So let's take a look at some of those mid-game team fights, because as said, good setup for Misfits, good performance by Maxlor, and it starts showing in these moments.
Yeah, because it's actually after, you know, it looked almost lost because Splyce has been picking up quite a lot of kills, but this fight specifically was so huge. Split the team, great engage on the 3. Cobby doesn't have any damage yet, so he can't really kill anyone in the fight, at least not on the front liners early enough, but once he gets the full stacks, he's trying. Sadly, his entire team has already died, so he goes down. This was like the big turnaround, because they just lost a member in the mid lane before this, where we were kind of being like, what kind of engage is this?
And that was really, really high, because the way that Sandbox goes in with Urgot, like, I personally don't follow Urgot too much. He's really, really popular over, you know, in other regions. In Brazil, he was picked, like, before it was good.
I love how of all of those things you picked Brazil. I love Brazil.
Early on, it was
because our assistant was coming over, coach, and he was telling me about Urgot, who's like first pick and ban in Brazil, and I'm like, okay, that sounds good.
And
now
then
it's actually
LCK and LPL doing it, and now
It's great.
So I was really hyped for when he was going on the backline and he was splitting everybody up and everything just explodes. You know, this is the Urgot highlight plays that I want to see.
And a good pick for Senkox, which is also something that we wanted to see.
I agree.
Senkox to be a little bit more proactive. After game 1, I was really doubting this pick because he went like full tank after Black Cleaver. And
I see a lot of people do that too.
Yeah, I think it's the correct way to build, but it just didn't have this amount of impact where you can justify it to be like an early first rotation pick, right? And now with this game, he's showing that he can be really, really aggressive on
It
this
is working for him and for Misfits. After that Dragon fight, it turns much better for Misfits, and Misfits keep it going. We're going to take a look at the Baron fight next, which unlike game 1 where Ornn ended up taking it, this does become relatively close, I have to say. Relatively or very close. Maxlor secures it.
Yeah, I feel like almost every fight in this series is like super close. Sengox actually again managed to get the best out of what looked like a really rough situation.
Yeah.
But Splyce then, the classic, let's run back and recall on our turret. Let's just recall a little bit closer to the enemy team, because then why not? They might get us. Let's ignore Smites. Game 1 also had a bit of an issue there. But to be fair, even the best teams in the world can fail a Smite.
It was an early spike, knowing that Kai'Sa was going to pick it up.
That's really nice. The 25 gold, really good to feed.
Now let's actually look at this, because it seemed like for Misfits that it was all done and dusted, but I have to commend Xerxes for his engages with Zac. We know he can do this, but he rarely ever does it with Zac. And Cobby, who just cleans up like a pro.
I mean, this is why Splyce draft the way they draft. It's not to win the early game. They know with Zac they don't have a strong early game jungler. They're okay letting Varsa scale to the late game because Cobby can sit and get a bunch of autos off. So this is where that comp starts shining. And they made it really hard for Misfits, but I also think in that fight, like, you know, the Poppy ulti completely misses, doesn't even force a flash. Like, that's obviously a problem. But Zac and the late game setup from Splyce made it really hard for Misfits to finish.
And this is why I think it is so important what you brought up at the beginning. This is the kind of moment that Misfits, when this happens, if you roll over and die there, it is completely over. You can pack your bags.
Yep.
Yeah.
You're done for the year. But they do turn it around. We're going to take a look at the ending team fight in the end. And that is what gives me hope that the series is going to become better as it goes on.
Yeah, and I think both teams are really picking up momentum here from, you know, now especially Misfit after this victory, which was super, super necessary for them. I'm really looking forward. I think that it has been better from game 1 to game 2, and now game 3 should be even better. Uruamne hitting those important all-no ultimates as well now. Overall, I think here the biggest problem is that Cobby was not auto-attacking once in this entire team fight.
Yeah.
And
He
was
got
just
knocked out by Poppy, man.
And I think this is #1 thing that Splyce needs to realize. The reason they are playing like they do, they pick the Tamkens, they pick the heavy CC. Mid lane is a tank, right? That their 2 carries are Maxlor and Cobby.
Yeah.
And they need to definitely play around those 2 to win the next game.
I also will
That's a
say,
good point.
I think the Klepto Swain wasn't really a fan. I think the Poppy is a lot easier for him to play with. The ulti landing on Copy here in the last fight was huge, as you guys can see in the goal graph. Like, we're starting to see more and more Splyce wins coming in towards the late game, and it looked like a 2-0 Splyce at that point.
It did.
But winning that last team fight, again, is so important.
How much does that swing things from you guys? You know, you're analysts, so you talk all about, you know, what you can statistically say, but feelings-wise, it does feel like Splyce has just a better head in the game at this point in time, because this was all their game. You know, they win the early game, they win those late game team fights that they want, but it is keeling over. What is the thoughts there?
For me, I think Splyce are the favorites to win the series. A lot of it comes down to when both teams are not maybe playing at the absolute top level right now, playing the more defensive comp is typically easier than the very proactive comp that wants to try and make big plays, especially if some of your playmakers like Mickey's not, you know, doing super well in the series just yet. So I think Splyce, and I thought they were going to win this game as well. Like, I'm going to give it to them 3-1. But Misfits next game can prove me wrong.
Yeah, and you know what we always say behind the scenes is, you know, stage games are slower, and I hate the sentence because there should be no difference between stage and your home practice, right? But it's really that you're second guessing yourself so much. So I really echo the sentiment that you should play the more standard comps that are easier to execute in the mid game, and I think Splyce has the better edge on there. I think Cobby is performing really, really well. And for Misfits, I'm lacking the person that really steps up and carries the game. Usually it's Summer, but I think he's not playing absolutely on point so far. So if Misfits is going to take it, it will be over Maxlow and Handsome.
Definitely Maxlow.
And if it's going to over Splyce, I think Cobby has a great match, and just you know, keep playing around him, and they should win.
Those are the guys we are looking at. Such an important series, do or die for both teams tonight if they want to make it to Worlds. Find out who takes the lead when we return.